Welcome back from the break. Yeah, Logan, PC Mike, and the Giggler, and we are moving into the MCU. The meat later in the episode is WandaVision Episode 5, the current phase 4 of the MCU. Before we get there, it's time for the next movie in our MCU rewatch. We are using the hashtag MCU rewatch on social media. Today we explore the last movie in phase 1 of the incredible Infinity Saga. This was it. 2012. It had been 4 years since Iron Man came out, and the end credit scene with Tony Stark and Nick Fury. We're talking about Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye, Black Widow. At the time, we, being the fans, we were ready. Boy, oh boy, what a treat. We're talking about the first major crossover event of the MCU that would end up being the first of not three, but 4 Avenger films, each wrapping up a handful of Marvel films every single time. We're talking Nick Fury, Loki, the Tesseract. Give it up right now for the 2012 hit, The Avengers. We are diving deep into this one today, so you know what that means. And then this is where I would play like a really cool spoiler alert noise, but I didn't get to it today. So there's your spoiler alert.
You've had 9 years to watch.
We'll still always give it though. If you're there, we hope that there are new MCU fans coming to the forefront. So if you're watching it, we absolutely will give those spoiler alerts. Setting up the movie. The film came out May 4th, 2012. It cost $220 million to make. Get ready for this. It made $1.5 billion with a capital B. You talk about how could they possibly keep these movies going? Well, when you're making $1.5 billion, it's a clear sign to keep the train moving on the MCU. Giggler, this is 12 years ago. You're 12 years younger. You're obviously just as handsome. Tell us how excited you were for this film and how did you feel during this rewatch? I think for you it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, well, this was only 9 years ago. Don't de-age me like that.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I had a typo. Hey, I had a typo in my notes. 9 years ago. Thank you for the correction.
It's okay. It's all right. Oh, man. I wish I could remember more of I don't remember who I saw this with or stuff like that. That's usually something that's pretty notable, but I just remember seeing this in theaters multiple times. This is just one of the best, and I mean, rewatching it holds up every single time. Like there's some movies in the rewatch where I could tell I was losing attention, like being on my phone a little bit more than others, but like this one is just like you're locked in, just ready for everything.
Hell yes. And PC Mike, we also call him DC Mike once in a while, but you rewatched it this week. How was that experience for you revisiting this film and, recall anything you can from when 2012 came around? How were you feeling? Were you kind of excited at the time? Because you weren't like me. I was like losing my mind.
May 2012, I graduated college, so this was not really on my radar. I had to go back and think when I actually did graduate, but I did graduate college. But I watched it. I don't think I watched it for a while after it came out, but rewatching it gave me an appreciation of some different things. I know we're going to talk about it a lot, but one thing that really popped out to me is how much they say phase 2 in this movie.
Yes, I noticed that too.
Yeah, that's the one thing, because being on this awesome podcast, I've been learning about the phases, and I'm learning weekly. But every time they said phase 2, I'd be like, oh.
I noticed that today in my rewatch that they were saying phase 2 like throughout the film, like part of like, oh, this is S.H.I.E.L.D.'s phase 2. It was part of the story, and you're like, oh my God, they're just saying it. It's like they wrote the plan, and then they were like, you know what? We could work that into the film.
Yeah, and it was blatant after like I guess 9 years of thinking about it, but yeah, they said phase 2 a lot. Some of the characters, it's crazy how some of the characters have changed from this film to the last film, because I guess I kind of watched them in a weird order. I watched Endgame, then I go all the way back and watch this, and it's just crazy how much character development has happened, how much more humor has been added with like the Hulk and Thor, and all of that. I don't know. It just seems like it's a totally different, almost franchise. It feels like watching these kind of back to back.
So well said. I could not agree more. And so interesting to hear how you, like, not being a super fan in the early days, now being on this podcast. I love hearing your take on it because it's just it's a little bit different than me and Andy, who just obviously are so happy all the time about these titles. Love to get your honest rating. I love that you're enjoying it.
And there was a thing that Jeremy Renner said too, is Hawkeye in here. That's like, I guess, what was that? Where was he at before like this happened?
So the last you see Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, and we meet him in Thor, and then he's in this movie.
But then wasn't he says something like, I guess you remember this differently than I do, like his back.
Oh, he's talking about, that's a reference to this big ongoing theory about Black Widow and Hawkeye being in Budapest one day. This is something that has never been answered, and like is still always looking to be answered. And we were hoping it was going to be in the Black Widow film, but unless it's a flashback, the storyline is not set at a time before. So
yeah, that's one thing I caught from listening, like rewatching this and listening to our episodes. Like that was a little nugget in there. Like, I guess you remember Budapest a lot differently than what I do. So that kind of, my ears perked up when I heard that part.
Yeah, and then you start learning that as you watch MCU stuff like that, you think about how just a one-off sentence like that could now become an entire TV series. And that's what the MCU is doing so well. That's what makes watching these things so fun. And that's why we're doing it for you guys, the listener and the viewer. This is where we kind of provide this service. If most superheroes provide any kind of service right now, it's, nerding out about these films. We love them, but we're here to connect the dots because Disney Plus and Marvel Studios is doubling down on the MCU titles, and you might need a little help. Watching TV nowadays is a lot more complicated than it's ever been before. When on earth did you need to have an idea of 24 movies before you started a TV show? It just never happened. Let's break this down quickly. We got this nice and tight. I hope you guys are enjoying the way that these are coming together, telling you what you need to know, trying to keep out some of the fluff, and just getting down to the story, the end credit scenes, where does it fit in the timeline, and of course, what are the biggest moments? We'll go through it today. Myself, PC Mike, and Giggler will rate the film, and then we're going to leave you with how does this stuff connect with current Marvel projects. Let's break it open. The story right here from beginning to end very quickly. Loki, Thor's brother. We met these folks in the Thor movie. He is hired, being Loki, by Thanos to seize the Tesseract from Earth, a.k.a. the Space Stone, we'll find out. He's given the Shatari army as means to an end, saying that, hey, guy, go get this Tesseract. You can have this army. This is all coming from Thanos. And he also has the Mind Stone, a.k.a. Loki's staff. This is also a gift. He is on this bad guy plan, right? This is Loki, full-on bad guy. He's coming on to Earth to take over. He thinks he's going to be like this big-time ruler, but he's at the end of the day, he's just a hired help. And Thor tells him this in the movie, too. He actually mind controls Dr. Selvig from the Thor movie, Hawkeye from the Thor movie. We see a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie, a.k.a. early days. This is, Hydra's in there, and you do get some nods to Hydra being in S.H.I.E.L.D. in this. When you meet the World Council, kind of seeing the evil side of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, what in the world's going on here? And it is up to the Avengers to save the day. The only problem, the Avengers are not a team yet. There's tons of ego going on, as we've seen in the other films, but they have to become a team if they're going to beat Loki and save Earth. The story does end with them succeeding. They take back Loki to Asgard, leaving a fight with Thanos to take place another day. We're just wrapping up the story. Don't worry, we're going to hit these big moments. The end credit scene of this film is the introduction to Thanos, the first time we ever see him. This is kind of the weird CGI purple version with the weird look-back smile you guys might remember. Giggler, thinking... Oh, go ahead.
He was
very purple. Giggler, do you remember when this came on? Were you aware of like who Thanos was? I forget about your comic. I think you and I are the same. We didn't like grow up reading the comics too hard. I had to have someone kind of tell me about this. How about you?
Yeah, same. I didn't really know much about him, but I was like, that guy's not that scary. He looks like a big, ugly McDonald's grimace.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and they really obviously came a long way from that version of Thanos to the fantastic looking Josh Brolin Thanos in the Infinity movies, Infinity War and Endgame, which we have a whole episode on that. Go listen to it. There is a second in-credit scene to this movie as well. This is the Avengers after they won the battle. They're eating the shawarma. Remember this? They were kind of eating at that diner, all chilled out. Let's get to these biggest moments. Rapid fire here. Loki entering through the space portal in the first 5 minutes of the movie. The S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier taking off from the ocean as Bruce Banner and Steve Rogers stand on the edge. Thor versus Iron Man. This is where we learn that Thor's lightning actually charges Tony's suit. This would be used in the fight against Thanos in Avengers Endgame. Thor hammers Cap's shield. All the payoffs, right? I always say this. Marvel Studios always gives you the big payoffs. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner in the lab. Oh my gosh. This was like, yes, give me these scientists building cool stuff. We obviously see more of that in Avengers Age of Ultron. We get some foreshadowing here for the Hulk story. The Hulk and Tony have this deep conversation about, did the Hulk save his life and for what? Tony says, we'll find out. Well, we know where that landed. We get the Avengers catching on to Hydra, kind of being S.H.I.E.L.D. There's a lot of Nick Fury hiding what they're doing with the Tesseract. They're actually creating weapons again, which was the whole problem in Captain America, the first Avenger. Gotta highlight this part. Probably one of my absolute favorites. Thor versus Hulk this is when Hulk busts out finally. This was Loki's big plan, and he fights Thor one-on-one. Again, huge payoff. Love that part on the helicarrier. Really sad. Phil Coulson does die in this one. Loki kills him. But he does come back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Great series. I love that show. Moving on to the big battle in New York. I love the Hulk transformation whenever he says, I'm always angry, and he punches down the big ship that's coming into town. Giggler, let's go to you. What are some of your favorite moments? I have some more, but I'm sure that we're going to say some of the same ones. And I was to say, like, on the Hulk part, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, he had willingly turned into the Hulk. Like, he just stands up, and I think about that now, like all the issues that he has with the Hulk in the future movies. I guess the Hulk was like, you know what, I'll come right out. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that was a very cool part. Basically anything with Iron Man. I remember back, Iron Man was like the thing that got me into these movies, and I think probably a lot of people would agree. Obviously, it was where it started, but I was like obsessed. I'm going to be a billionaire someday just so I can have all this shit that he does. But I lack a little bit of the brain power, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you put me on the spot.
Oh, no, we're here. I got some more for you. How about this? The Avengers team up, the iconic shot where they're doing the circular shot with all of them down on the street. This is like, I had chills again. Thor bottlenecking the portal when he has the hammer and he's up on the Empire State Building and he's lightning striking the hole to keep it short. It looks so good.
Oh yeah, I got one now. When the Hulk just absolutely demolishes Loki and just plays him around like a rag doll. That part's so good.
Hell yeah, it just showed the ultimate power of this Hulk. Like, you were like, oh, this guy can fight people from outer space. This is where you thought okay, well, if this big Thanos guy's coming, you got Hulk, but we know how that turned out too. We also have, oh man, this was a part where I literally got chills so much that I thought I was gonna I kind of teared up. It was when Iron Man blasts off of Captain's shield in the big fight on the street. It's they just all became a team after Phil Coulson dies, and the music is just ramping up to this big part. This is where we get the Hydra side of S.H.I.E.L.D. The missile. They decide that the New York's lost and they're gonna nuke Manhattan. This is crazy. They're just gonna nuke New York. And I have a theory about this. They actually show the pilot, the guy that shoots the thing, and he's like, all right, the payload is off. And he goes off to bomb New York. My theory, I'm putting it out there, that this captain is he's the evil Captain America that we'll see in Falcon Winter Soldier. It'll come back around to be a flashback of this guy that has always been kind of evil, but a military guy. It's a reach.
I hope you're right.
It's just it's the kind of stuff that I'm starting to see kind of happen in WandaVision, so I'm being a little bit more bold with my theories. And I figure, what if I'm wrong? Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, no, that's a no risk prediction right there.
Yeah.
No one's gonna call you an idiot for it.
No, they will. They will. The internet is harsh. All right, so this is great. This is when the missile's going up. This is the big moment where Iron Man or Tony takes it up into the wormhole, sees the big army in space. Man, reliving this movie was insane. Like seeing the aliens come through that wormhole and the Avengers and all of the humans are experiencing this for the first time. Like no one even really knows about aliens. It was like, man, this would be a wild concept. Tony goes to the wormhole and he actually tries to call Pepper from his suit and she doesn't answer. It's wild because he actually does get that phone call in Avengers Infinity War when he's headed to Titan and he finally got that phone call later on. Cap says, Tony comes back through, the Hulk catches him. Cap says, we won. They get Loki. He says, I'll have that drink now. We got the Stan Lee cameo toward the end. Stark Tower is destroyed, but we get the tease to Avengers Tower. Let's just take a moment right now. This movie is so good. Absolutely. PC Mike, do you have any other thoughts on this film? Any big moments from your end? And I'm going to hit us with some Easter eggs and some connections before we move on. But this is time for you guys to have the floor if you have any thoughts on Avengers, the 2012 movie.
I thought you nailed it pretty well with, in the beginning of this, they were all kind of doing their own thing. Like Iron Man's jumping out of the plane to go do his thing, and then Captain America's like, all right, well, we'll stay down here and all that kind of stuff. And then seeing them come together was pretty cool. I guess the one that kind of pops out to me is how awful it would be to live in New York at this time. Like you're just chilling in your apartment and all this stuff's happening, so much damage like to your apartment and like cars around you, like how awful that would be. But no, it was cool to see. It was cool to see them come together. But yeah, it's a movie I haven't seen in a very long time, so it was really enjoyable. And being able to like pick up like the Phase 2 stuff and the stuff with Hawkeye. I mean, doing this podcast has made me a little more aware of that things, and it makes the movie more enjoyable.
Something you said, I love how you said like the perspective of the people like in New York, because they actually explore that in Spider-Man Homecoming. And that's like the whole premise behind Michael Keaton as the Vulture, the bad guy. He actually just worked at the construction site, and he's like, hey, I got this contract. We need to get all this stuff cleaned out of here. And S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in and is like, no, we're going to do this. And he's like, but I got guys out on my team. And that's that's like the whole premise is like, oh, we'll clean it up. You pay us. And S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like, no, we're not going to let you do that.
I might be a Team Keaton on that then. I just paid 2 kids to shovel my sidewalk. I'm all for the common man getting their own share.
Have you seen the Spider-Man movies? The Tom Hollands?
Yeah. Isn't that the one where he shows up and her dad is the villain?
Yeah. Yeah. Michael Keaton. I mean, it's on the list, of course, but I was just curious if you had seen that Keaton film.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about a rating? Let's get a rating real quick.
I'm just going to go 3.0 for me. Because it's hard for me because I saw Endgame so recently, and it's just so different, and it's just so big. And then kind of watching this, I'm not saying it didn't live up, but it's hard to compare those two, and it's just kind of stuck in my head. And I think that's kind of holding me back. But it's a fun watch, easy to watch. It's a great film to just have on, and I could see me going back and doing maybe a deep dive like the Giggler did, not as quick, but going back through and like watching all these again.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear that. Well, speaking of the Giggler, let's hear your overall thoughts of the film and any moments that we missed, and of course your rating. And feel free to dive in.
Let's see. So I think I'm gonna go with a 3. Just start with the rating here. 3.5. I gotta give it a better rating than the other guys.
Hell yeah. I would have been confused if not.
Exactly. And it's also like still below the Infinity War and Endgame ratings that I gave a couple months back. But if you just like look at this picture that we're looking at right now for the YouTube viewers, like just think about where each of these people has come since this time and like where they're going in the future. Like Hawkeye has his own damn show. Like who would have thought, when you were watching this, would you have really, if someone bet that Hawkeye was going to have a show and 9 years later, I would have said, yeah, right. He will be like, I maybe these movies wouldn't even be happening in my mind in 2012. Like to think that how long this has really been going on and how long it's planning to go. is honestly truly amazing. Like, and this was the first kind of big crossover of them all, to where now every movie that they have is like a crossover, because there's so many people, different characters in it. It's not like you're just gonna have one person in it. Like, even, I mean, it's insane. Just like you mentioned the Avengers movie earlier, and I was like, I thought there was more, but that's just because Civil War is actually a Captain America movie, but there's just everyone's in it. So that's what I love about it. There's just so much going on, and they just play off of everything just perfectly, consistently for what, like 15 years now.
Yeah, it's almost like, well said. That's really well said. It's almost like you rewatch some of this stuff, and like like you said it, all these small moments, or these B-line, C-line characters that you would think don't matter at all, like they're building stuff from the very get-go. And I'm glad you mentioned Hawkeye, because let's do it right now. Let's connect it to the future stuff. That was actually one I hadn't connected. If you can't tell, like I'm still struggling to be like paying attention to Hawkeye as much as like the other shows, but I know it's going to be good. I'm not questioning that. But like, if you're asking me point blank, like who gets you more excited, Hawkeye or Iron Man? Come on. But other films. First of all, oh yeah, I was going to highlight an Easter egg. Not all of them. There's so many. There's too many. But one that I had never actually caught before. One of the cops on the ground on New York, he actually, I didn't even get the actor's name. Maybe you can look this up for his PC Mike while I'm talking through this. I'm looking for the male actor that's in Agent Carter. And then he actually ended up being in, from Agent Carter, he ended up being in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the final season, because there was like a time travel component. So Peggy Carter's obviously like in the 40s. The same actor plays a cop in the Avengers film. He's just one of like the two cops, and his lines like, "This is crazy. What are we supposed to do?" And Captain America like says like, "Get people up 3 blocks from here." He was like one of those cops. I looked it up too. My bad, fans, listeners. I looked it up and I forgot to write down the name. I have my phone on me, but he's in
Daniel Souza. Does that sound
Yep,
familiar?
that's him. That's the guy. I think that's the character's name, right? Or is that the actor's name? Either way, Souza is his name. I just don't know if it's his real name or his fake name.
Yeah, I can't figure it.
That's all right. Listeners know who I'm talking about. It was kind of like the love interest of Peggy Carter. And then it's crazy because in Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., spoiler alert for the final season, not anything too big, but there's a time travel component. So they go into like Peggy Carter's past, and this guy joins the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team and goes to the future. And like then he's a love interest of Quake. Did you watch
his name? That's his name in the universe.
In the universe. Giggler, did you watch the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I did not. I think I quit after maybe before the last one or the last two. But I'm trying to think if I'm thinking of the right guy that you're referencing.
He's got black hair, real handsome guy. Sousa's definitely his name. That was good, PC Mike.
Okay. Very nice. That's good. That's a great connection. Wow.
I didn't realize that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went till 2020.
Yeah, it just ended. Like I watched it just before Christmas, the season finale, and I was legit sad. I'm gonna rewatch the whole show. I'll just say it right now because I am excited. I love that show. All right, let's talk about how this movie connects to some future stuff, and then we're gonna move on to some future stuff with Phase 4 and WandaVision, the latest episode, breaking it down. First of all, Black Widow is coming in May 2021. This is definitely one of the arcs of Natasha Romanoff. It'll connect. We'll be talking about it. Loki, this is huge, guys. Loki's coming May 2021 as well. This is the Loki we're getting in the show. This is, in this story, in our universe, the MCU, we know that he gets captured. He goes back to Asgard. Well, in the show, we're going to get this Loki that vanished with a Tesseract. And the Chitauri army. There's some cool scenes in this movie, Avengers, where he's like, when he transports himself to go talk to them. And they give him like, you better get this done. Don't screw us over. The Chitauri person says to him, if you fail and you do not bring us the Tesseract, there will be no realm, no barren moon, no crevice we can't find you. You think you know pain? We'll make you long for something sweet as pain. Like, what a threat. Oh my gosh, this is the Loki. So he's telling them, if Loki, you don't bring us this Tesseract, Well, I'm guessing in the TV show, this Shatari army is making a comeback, and they're going to be looking for him. And that Thanos of the time will be looking for him. These are things to keep in mind for the series. This is why it's important. We're going to help you guys as we talk about Loki in the future films, Thor: The Dark World, and of course, Thor: Ragnarok. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming up March 19th. This movie, Avengers, shows you about the corruption of S.H.I.E.L.D., shows you more about the World Council. We already tied some things here, but you get to see some Hydra folks in this movie that you would see in future Marvel titles like Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which we are going to watch in the next couple weeks. And then we already talked about Black Widow. This is definitely part of her arc. So this is why it's good to revisit these, get you nice and grounded with what's coming up. Don't worry, we'll refresh you of all this as we talk about these new MCU titles. Guys, thanks for letting us revisit Marvel's The Avengers from 2012. We're going to keep the MCU rewatch going. We are now in Phase 2. This is the last movie of Phase 1. Next film next week will be Iron Man 3. Oh, man, fans, listen up. Tell us what you think of this movie. I know people hate it. I know people love it. I know there's people like me that are just kind of in the middle. I am so excited to break it open, just talk about it at a high level, give you the story, how it connects, and then we'll keep it going with Thor and Captain America: The Winter Soldier in the future. Real quick, my rating on Avengers, I'll give it a 3.4.